Welcome to the channel, everybody. I'm Rob. And I'm Rich. What's on tap today, Rob? We got Pearl. She doesn't toe any kind of line, but she calls generally women out for things, saying that they're over the top and whatnot. And she's got about 2 million subscribers, too, so she's gone large in a quick period of time. All right, I'm looking forward to it.
So everyone knows the commonly cited Morgan Stanley study that half of women are going to be single and childless between the ages of 25 and 45 by 2030.
Jesus.
Now it's 2024, we're 6 years away, and we're already starting to see this, right? And I had somebody recently say to me that he just expects to be a single parent because that's the way the world is going. And even though this is kind of a gloomy outlook, I couldn't help but think he was right. And the reason that I couldn't help but think he was right is I'm already starting to see it. So let's say half of women don't marry, don't have kids, okay? What happens to the other half of the women? Let's say that, let's be generous here. Half of the women that have kids, let's say a third will be single mothers. I think we all could agree, on both sides, that's probably about true. Now, let's say the 2/3 get married. Now, we know that half will divorce, so then you take out that half. Now you have the third of the half, which is 15, 20%. Let's just say 20% of women.
17.
No, that's too high. Let's say 15% left that stay married. We know a quarter of marriages are sexless. I would argue that's on the low end. So you take out a quarter. I mean, that's maybe 5-10% of people that are married. And it's really interesting because I'm going to keep seeing the cope, right? I'm going to keep seeing everybody say, return to traditionalism. And don't confuse this with being my hope. This isn't what I hope to happen, but what seems like, and every indication is showing that it's going to happen. We've liberated women to the point that they don't need men. They're given jobs we don't deserve. We're overpaid, and we're given government incentives to leave. So,
well, here's something I want to say, Rich. The thing about tradition, when people mock tradition or say, oh, you've just been that way, well, things become tradition for a reason. It isn't like everybody got on board with it immediately. I mean, I don't know. Think about hunters or something. Who was the first person who decided to put a deer head on a wall? You know that was, his wife couldn't have been in favor of that. It's like, oh, let's put this dead thing up there. But then over time, they figured out how to do it, and it became tradition. So now it's one of these things where you look at it and you say, okay, that's kind of normal now. But it didn't happen overnight. There were discussions about it. Same thing with marriage. People think, oh, it's one of these things where, oh, it's just tradition. People always did that. No, they didn't. There was a time when their marriage didn't even happen like that. People probably just lived together. I don't know how it worked way back then. So people say, oh, it's just traditional. Nobody's thinking about it. Well, they did think about it, and it's human nature. Human nature doesn't change. I could see your point. I don't know the origin of marriage around the world and such. The United States is only about 250, 300 years old in that context. And they came from the UK, and then what preceded the UK, I'm not quite sure. But I do agree, people don't change much. So why did they get married in the first place? There must have been good reasons. So when we attack those reasons without knowing why, then we suffer consequences. All right, let's get back into Pearl.
Many women have chosen to do that. I'm guessing about a quarter of women by 2030, maybe 2035, will be doing sex work to some capacity. I think you could argue it's already that high with the rise of OnlyFans, but we all know that academia is always going to censor information that makes women look bad because you see it in real time. Whenever I say any information that makes women look bad, the gut reaction is, one, what did the men do? And two, something that excuses the behavior.
Wow.
For example, if I talk about women making bad choices, what do you guys do? What does the simpery do? Oh, it's the culture's fault. Oh, it's feminism's fault. It's never the woman's individual choice. Now, what does that tell us? We actually live in a culture that doesn't shame women for doing any of these decisions. You see female single mother influencers on the right. And that's the other thing. It's interesting because everyone's trying to pretend marriage isn't dead. But even amongst conservative influencers, many have been married multiple times. Many are divorced.
It's kind of
There's
normal,
single
that
mothers in
part.
there. So even on the right, we can't preserve it. Doesn't seem like. There's some places that are better than others, but across the board as society, it's kind of scary to think about what the future holds, because the future is going to be not what I wish it to be, but what every stat that you look at shows it's going to be. If you look at dating app stats, which is the number one way people meet under 30. If you look at the STD stats, it shows women are the ones spreading them. Small percentage of men are spreading them. It's going to be a lot of sex workers, especially if they start pulling away government benefits. Women will run to sex work. A bunch of single...
Well, that was a mouthful, Rich. It certainly was. Statistics, they can be used for different things, but when you look at things like dating apps, it does indicate behaviors. Well, and I don't know if we need to sound the alarm and all that kind of stuff, but I like Pearl a lot because she's strong. I think she's the youngest of 10 kids. And she was in your neck of the woods for a while. She was over there in the UK. I don't know if she's back in the States or not or where she is, but she's taking a lot of heat, but doesn't mind taking the heat because she has good arguments. She's kind of like the Candace Owens of, like, she calls women out on this. Candace focuses on the black community and politicians and all that. But Pearl calls women out for stuff, so of course they don't like that. Nobody likes being called out for their own behaviors. People like to be victims. The victimology today. Well, anyway, we got the link to Pearl's channel down in the description box so you can check her out because she's worth watching. She says things that you don't normally hear out there. Indeed, she does. All right, people, that does it for this episode. Have a great day. Please subscribe and like the video, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Rich and Rob Show. Cheers!